Sleepy Hollow episode 10 titled The Golem, or Golem, if you want to call it that. This episode was pretty good. We had a break last week, so, we've kind of been waiting to see, what happened to Ichabod's son. Did he live? Would he somehow, have also been sort of, frozen in time like Ichabod was? And in this episode, we get, it actually wrapped up quicker than I thought it would. I thought it would kind of, span a lot more of this season. It would kind of be just a really big part of the story that would lead to even more stuff. But it was really its own, single story. We found out what happened to Ichabod's son, the life he lived, and, how he died and everything, really. It was a really good episode, and, Ichabod kind of went through his own thing, obviously learning about his son as we, the viewers, did at the same time. But, in this episode, we learned that Ichabod's son, basically inherited Katarina's powers as a witch, and so when he was a baby, and he was in like a lot of pain and he was crying, he would kind of activate his powers at random, and that is actually how Abby's ancestors were killed in a house fire. And so his son kind of went to an orphanage where he was, kind of looked over by a really crappy guy. And one day, he's being whipped, and this blood drops on the doll he's had since he was a baby, and him wanting to have someone to really look after him, and also him being so powerful, created a golem, and it was his doll, and it basically just killed anyone that was coming after him. And that's how he grew up living his life, was that anyone who came after him, which was pretty much everyone, because he was like technically a warlock who had all this power, anyone who came after him would be killed by this golem. And he was basically killed by these four women, who were the same four women who condemned his mother to purgatory. And they put his doll into purgatory, his golem into purgatory, and they killed him, sadly. But it was cool how Ichabod, he confronted them, and even though he felt there was a lot that he wanted to do to them, the scene where before he actually goes to meet them, he wants to talk to them by himself, and it seemed to me because he wanted to kind of threaten them in a sense and sort of hurt them in a way. But he really just wanted to help them out, even though they were the ones who killed his son. And even after learning that, he still says, you will die if, the golem comes here to attack you, but if you come with me now, then, you'll be fine. But they believe that, death begets death, so it was kind of a circle of death, really. But it was a really good episode. Like I said, most of the saddest thing is that his son did just end up dying. It was kind of like, he just lived a really, really crappy life. He was an orphan. His mom had to give him away, so they, since she was a fugitive, she figured he could be safe. And then him, unfortunately, inheriting her powers, which would normally be fine if Ichabod wasn't, basically just frozen in time, and Katarina wasn't on the run because of, she was a fugitive. That would have been fine, and he would have grew up learning his powers and stuff. But as an orphan, he caused a house fire and was, put in an orphanage and was on his own his whole life. And then he gets a golem, and he just lives his life on the run, with his golem, like killing people left and right, because that's the only way he could, survive, is just by running. And, this golem comes out of purgatory because it, follows Ichabod after he goes into purgatory. And so it becomes the enemy, and, starts to kill off all the, like, the ancestors of the witches who basically condemned Katarina. And it was really good. And, in the end, Ichabod was able to, he had to face the golem, and he killed it. And I love what the guy, the Sin Eater, said, in the ending scene, where he said, if I wasn't the one who helped, separate your blood from the horsemen, then you wouldn't have been able to, put the golem to rest as well as your son. I thought that was just like a really good line. It was obviously a nice thing to say, but I thought it was just really well done in general. And I like that character, the Sin Eater. I really thought he was gonna die because of just him having so much dialogue. Honestly, they made it seem like him saying, like, promise I'll be able to get on the train, the 12:45 train or whatever. It just made me think he's not gonna make it out of this episode. But I'm glad he lived, because we got to learn more about him too. It was a little bit, like his father and mother and stuff. So I think he will actually come back in, a couple more episodes this season, especially since he in the end was like, I'm glad I helped you, like separate you from the horsemen and stuff, and I feel like I can actually do a lot more than I initially expected. So it was cool to get that, and I think to kind of lead to more good episodes with him, and we might learn even more, about him. But the main story was really well done. Ichabod kind of had a sense of closure. Well, it was closure really. He took out the golem. The sisters were killed off, or at least it seemed that way. They could actually just be gone. I thought they died, but technically, I mean, they're witches. They could have just like teleported. I don't know. But he had his sense of closure, and it was just a really good episode. And then, of course, the ending I really enjoyed because he's confronted by Moloch, and Moloch is trying to go after Abby's soul, and also he says, once I get her soul, war is gonna rise. So he mentions the second horseman. So, or I guess it would be the third because we got pestilence. But he mentions the third horseman, so we'll have to see how that really plays out. But that would only happen if he gets Abby's soul. So unless they find some way to work it in where her soul gets split or something like that, I don't think we'll actually get to see war, unfortunately, because it would be cool to just have more horsemen in, of course. But it was a great suspense ending, and then we have the other side of the story, which is Orlando Jones being Orlando Jones. And he's in New York. He's going to see his daughter. He goes to who I believe is his father, who is a pastor of the church. And he's dealing with all this stuff now that he's really in the inner circle, and he's dealt with all the crap, and he's seen the horsemen and almost got his head chopped off and stuff. And so he's going through trying to deal with being a father and stuff, who's always away, and especially now that he's dealing with all this crazy demonic stuff. How in the world is he supposed to deal with that? And we get a great tease in this episode when he's with his daughter, and like this random hot dog guy is like possessed by a demon that is talking about, is your daughter strong enough to fight for her soul? And like, you might have a plan, but we have a plan too, and stuff. And that was a great scene because who knows how that'll tie into the main story, because that could tie into the fourth horseman if it's like they need someone's soul from like the inner circle or whatever. I don't know, but they're kind of gonna go after him. And now he was like off in Sleepy Hollow is in New York, but he's in like New York City, and they kind of followed him out there pretty much. So they're getting really bold, and they're possibly gonna attack his family. So I'm excited to see how that plays out and how he's gonna have to deal with helping Ichabod and Abby while protecting his own family. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. It was good to see sort of that side of him because like I said in some of my other reviews, we didn't really get much of his backstory until it was just like he's on the phone with someone, and then like 2 episodes later we just get to see his wife and kid, or ex-wife. I'm still not sure if they're actually married or divorced yet, but it's getting close, I guess. But love this episode overall. Main story was really good. Side story was also really good, even though it was really, really short. It was a nice little bit to see Orlando Jones, because I'm not even gonna bother with his name. Him kind of dealing with everything he's seen now, and getting that little tease that he's gonna be attacked. He's in the inner circle. He's no longer safe, and neither is his family. And he's really the only person who actually has family to attack. So it makes perfect sense that they would introduce that sort of side story where he has to now deal with even more danger and just looking out for his own family, as where Abby has her sister who was in it even before Abby was, and then Ichabod's pretty much on his own while trying to get Katarina out of purgatory. So they're in a sense sort of safe in the family aspect, and he's just got like a father and then wife slash ex-wife and a daughter who are just involved with him, and we'll have to see how that plays out. But great episode, can't wait for next week. Comment below, let me know what you guys thought of this episode, favorite parts, least favorite parts, and I'm not really sure what to ask for what's coming up next week. But do you guys want to see a new horseman, or do you guys want to see death again? Because I feel like after the battle they had, even though they've sort of solved that, death being death, how do you kill death? I've seen it in certain games and stuff, but how do you kill death? So do you guys want to see death come back, or do you guys want war to come in and Hopefully not by obviously Abby dying or whatever. But do you guys want to see war or do you guys want to see death come back in? Comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.